I'm not teaching, I am publicly learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life and UK test part 112. Florence, Nightingale, by doing morning stretching. And if you participate in morning stretching, that is at your own risk. So the last thing was the Crimean War. And the other things mentioned were that it lasted from 1853 until 1856. And the British troops were fighting against the French, were fighting with the French and the Turkish troops against the Russian. And it's something else I wanted to tell you. When I looked up how the Bayeux tapestry is pronounced, I came over the town in France in the Normandy, Bayeux, and there was a picture of British troops marching through Bayeux after they had liberated it from France. Now the explanation why I tell it. So the first thing is, the Bayeux tapestry is a 70-meter long embroidery on which the Battle of Hastings 1066 is depicted, which happened through William the Conqueror, who was the Duke of Normandy, who had made the Norman conquests into England and conquered England. And in the Battle of Hastings 1066, he won over Harold the Saxon king, and he then became William the Conqueror. And the second thing is that we were talking about the conflicts of which France and Britain had in the past. And these were, for example, this Battle of Hastings, or then the 116 years long, 100 years war, where the Battle of Agincourt was in 1415, where the vastly outnumbered troops of Henry V won against the French. And then we had also the conflicts because we had the same ambitions in trading and expansion in the colonies during the 18th and 19th century, I think also. And we had then this other war again with Napoleon, the government after the French Revolution in 1789, declaring war on Britain and Napoleon continuing it. And then the Battle of Trafalgar, in which the troops of Admiral Nelson won against the French fleet. And because that France and Britain are now friends. I'm not sure what will happen in the next 150 years, but today we are friends, and I said already one story to that the Bayeux tapestry should be lent to Britain, but also that the British troops had to liberate France. And there was I wanted to tell this story finally. There was a picture on the Wikipedia page to the Bayeux, the city Bayeux in France, that the British troops were there to liberate it from the Nazis. So in here now in this Crimean War, Britain was fighting together with France and Turkey against Russia on the Crimea, in the Crimean War. That was the first thing, so the dates, 1853, 1856. The second thing is that British, French and Turkish troops fought against the Russian on Crimea, and that it was the first war. That is pretty sure something which should be known for the test, and also other people like to talk about it. But it was the first war, and it is very important that it was. So it's not just that people like to talk about it. It is very important in multiple subjects of life. But it was the first war to be extensively covered by photographs, and more people died through infections they got in hospitals went through war wounds. And the final thing, that the Queen Victoria Cross, or the Victoria Cross, after her, who was Queen from 1847 until 1901, was given to people who shot a lot of whaler soldiers. And they are missing a little bit the story. I'm pretty sure it was a Crimean War of the Charge of the Light Brigade. I'm missing here a little bit, because these were soldiers who, it's famous what is said about them, that they acted with great valor, something which was bad done. So they did the wrong thing with great valor. The story is, it was a charge. So a charge in military is an attack, basically. They were charging, and they were the light horsemen, charge of the light brigade. But these are the people on the light horses. They are the fast troops, and they were charging against a position, and they did not. They had the wrong position. That is the thing. They confused the battlefield. It's not funny. They confused the battlefield, and they charged to the wrong position, and they could be shot at from the mountaintops, and they rode with great valor. These soldiers, most of them died, and they confused the battlefield, and they rode against the wrong position, and that is known as the Charge of the Light Brigade. And I'm missing a little bit because we're talking about soldiers who acted with great valor, and more people died through shot wounds than through infections, because we're talking here about 2 or 3 things, and also the photographs. But this story I'm missing a little bit, the charge of the Night Brigade. But now to Florence Nightingale, and that is important. We haven't read it, so we can read it because of the infections in the hospitals. But let's start with morning stretching. I can't talk much longer, otherwise. And if you participate in the morning stretching, this is the youngest. We're having the legs standing a bit more and shoulder wide apart, and we're going backward shoulders, up and front and down. And one last time. And now backward shoulder steps from up, back, and down. And the last time. And now we are lifting the shoulders up, breathing out, more or less vigorously from down. And we're breathing in and bring up shoulders again up and out. And again breathe in and out. And again in and out. And last time breathe in and out. Now lift the arms up and we're doing the apple plucker. And now keep just normal breathing while you reach high and pretend to pluck an apple which is hanging high on an apple branch. Take it, you turn it a little bit, and then you harvest the apple. A few more. And the last two. 1 and 2. And now let's go on with Florence Nightingale. 1820, 1910. 1820, 1910, so 90 years. So 1820, 1910. Florence Nightingale was born in Italy to English parents. So her parents were British and they were in Italy when she was born. Florence Nightingale was born in Italy to English parents. At the age of 31, she trained as a nurse in Germany. So in 1851, she trained, so she worked as a nurse, or better, she learned how to be a nurse. And a nurse is in hospital someone who takes care of the patients and tries to make them again healthy. In 1851, so 3 years after, she went to Turkey and worked in military hospitals. That is 1 year into the Crimean War. I don't know what is all of it important, but she was born in Italy to English parents. Beside, what of it is important? It is important that she had English parents because when she got to London, so she was born to English parents in Italy, and she trained for 3 years in Germany as a nurse, where she learned what it means to be a medical nurse. And in 1851, 1 year into the Crimean War, she went to Turkey and worked in military hospitals treating soldiers who were fighting the Crimean War. So here's Britain, here's Europe, and there's Italy, and there's Turkey, and the Black Sea is here, and there's the Crimea. So after Turkey, the north coast of Turkey, that is the Black Sea, and basically inside of the Black Sea there is the peninsula Crimea. And the peninsula is a piece of land which is basically an island, but it has at some place still a connection to the land. So the Crimea is basically an island in the Black Sea, and Turkey is part of it. It has a long coastline with the Black Sea, and the Turkey was fighting together with the British troops. So it makes sense if the people got wounded in Crimea, they get into hospitals to Turkey. In 1851, she went to Turkey and worked in military hospitals treating soldiers who were fighting in the Crimean War. So when, after learning for 3 years the stuff to be a nurse, she went to Turkey and worked in military hospitals where she treated the soldiers who fought in the Crimean War and got injured. we need to cut it, and that is also so important. We are making 2 parts for that, so we will now to end the morning stretching, and then we will go through it again, but we will need a second part. We're having the legs standing wide apart. We're breathing in and lifting the arms up. The shifter shifts over to the side just of the upper part of the body and breathes out when it shifts. And we're breathing in into the middle. And out, we're going over to the other side. And we're breathing in into the middle. And out over to the other side. And again in into the middle. And out over to the other side. And again in into the middle. And the last time out to the other side. And into the middle. And out to the other side. And again into the middle. And now out, we're coming down and we're leaning onto our knees. And we're breathing in. And out, we're bringing one shoulder in front. And breathe in into the middle. And out, one shoulder in front. And again in into the middle. And out, one shoulder in front. In into the middle. And out, shoulder in front. And again in into the middle. And now out, and we're hanging down. Breathe in. And out over to one leg. And breathe again in. And out over to the other side. And breathe in. Out back into the middle. And breathe in. And out, we're coming slowly up with round back and making it a top a backwards shoulder. And now garden pose. The toes are pointing to the outsides. We're having an ulnar limb space between our heels. We're breathing in and lifting the arms up. And we're breathing out and sinking down. And placing the elbows against the insides of the knees. And we're breathing in and straightening up the back. And we're breathing out and we're coming back up. And breathe in. And out and out. And breathe in and straighten up the back. And out, making up the back. And breathe again in. And out. And breathe in and straighten up the back. And out, we're coming slowly up in one straight line. And now we see horse pose. We're having a standing leg, and we're placing the heel of a mobile leg on top of a knee of a standing leg. Do this only if you can do it without injury yourself. You're breathing in. And out, we're going down. And Turkey didn't exist then. Turkey was, I think, in 1913 founded. It was, I'm not sure, but I think it was the Ottoman Empire. Okay. So Florence Nightingale, she treated soldiers who were fighting in the Crimean War in 1854 in Turkey in military hospitals. She and her fellow nurses improved the conditions in the hospital and reduced the mortality rate. Now we're coming up again, and we're going over to the other end. We're breathing in, and out, and we're coming down. So Florence Nightingale and her fellow nurses improved the conditions in the hospitals. So they improved the living conditions. Again, not really with something explained here. I'm gonna read one. I don't know much about it, so I can't really talk something about it. So they reduced the mortality rate, so the rate in which people died. So people were no longer dying. Let's make some numbers up. At 50%, but just at 30 or 20 or 10%, something like that. And we're breathing in and out. And again in and out. And again in, out, and again in, out. We're closing the legs. Out. We're done with morning stretching. Thank you very much, and until the next time.